Welcome to the Unscripted Authentic Leadership Podcast, the podcast where we're seeking to lead change while also seeking to understand. We are also here as a platform to provide leaders to come together to unite, to develop and empower other leaders in the areas of business, family, faith, and community. I am your host, Lafayette Lane, joined by my co-host, John LeBrun. Today, we are joined by our special guest, Amy Lynn Durham of Create Magic at Work. You already know what time it is. Let's welcome our guest and make her feel right at home. Put those hands together, clap those hands, put the clap emojis in the comments section for Amy Lynn Durham. She's here to continue on a conversation that we've had with her before. She's our first returning guest. We're going to have a part 2 conversation about spiritual and emotional intelligence, a deep dive into that. Those of you that may not know who Amy is, she's from Clovis, California, and she is the founder of Create Magic at Work. She's also a UC Berkeley certified executive coach. In addition, Amy is also certified to coach in the 21 skills associated with spiritual intelligence using the SQ21 assessment and an emotional intelligence practitioner. She's also spent years in the corporate world, successfully managing hundreds of employees for private and publicly traded companies. She created Magic at Work with the intention to offer spiritual intelligence and emotional intelligence to energize and transform the workplace. We're going to unpack exactly just what that is. As always, those of you that will watch and listen to this, hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel, and you can listen to this podcast on any podcast streaming platform where podcasts are offered. Amy, let's get right into the conversation. Just lay that down for our audience, for those, because the Unscripted family has grown since the last time you were here with us about 20 odd episodes ago. What is the SQ21? What is this whole idea about spiritual and emotional intelligence? Give us what that really is, and then let's dive a little deeper.
All right. Well, I'm excited that the show has grown, and I'm excited to be back. So thank you for having me back, and we'll get right into it. So I talked about a little bit this in the first episode, but if you think of a pyramid in your mind, and the foundation of that pyramid is PQ, physical intelligence, the next layer is IQ, and then the next layer is EQ, and then the top of that pyramid is SQ. And you get to SQ, spiritual intelligence, by way of EQ. So if you study the adult development theory, you'll see that most humans, there's always exceptions, tend to display the ability to behave with compassion in a larger way when they're around their early to mid 20s. That's where the emotional intelligence and the EQ starts developing. And I want to offer this definition of emotional intelligence to the listeners. It's one of my favorites. It's the ability to understand, use, and manage your emotions in a positive way to relieve stress, communicate effectively, empathize with others, overcome challenges, and diffuse conflict. The reason why I want to offer that is because we're talking about leadership here.
Yes.
And emotional intelligence is a topic, thankfully, that is being discussed in the workplace now. And we all want leaders that can help relieve stress, diffuse conflict, and make decisions that create that ripple effect for humanity. Then when you get into SQ, there's a few definitions for SQ. One I like to share is the ability to put your day-to-day concerns aside, put your ego aside. There's a lot of clashing egos in the workplace, and operate from a big picture view. Maybe operate from a space that you would call your higher self, that place within you that comes from wisdom and compassion and love. And then also there's another definition, which is Cindy Wigglesworth, who designed the SQ21, which is the 21 skills. It's the ability to maintain wisdom and compassion, regardless of the situation you're in, and make decisions based off of that. So that sort of sets the scene for you on SQ. You get to SQ, spiritual intelligence, by way of EQ. And in the adult development theory, most humans start exploring SQ around their early to mid 30s. Think about that's the time in your life where some start to question, why am I here? What is my life purpose? what are my values? What am I even doing here? And that's the evolution piece there with SQ. For the workplace, the 21 skills are specifically designed for the workplace. And obviously, they trickle into your personal life and your personal development, but they are faith neutral. You can be atheist, you can be agnostic, as long as you believe you have this place within you that can operate from wisdom and compassion. You can work on these 21 skills. I get a lot of pushback from people. Oh, you're woo-woo. Or, oh, this isn't for the workplace. This is religion. We don't want to talk religion. And it's like, well, that's not what this is. This is a practice, and these are 21 skills that you can actually use to elevate yourself as a leader if you want to be a highly developed leader.
Sure. Yeah. I think that's really good. Without going too deep, and I know we're going deep dive, but we're all, I believe, spiritual beings just living a natural experience. Mm-hmm. So when you talk about that emotional and spiritual intelligence, it is something that is absolutely vital if you want to be successful as leaders in the workplace, and not as just in the workplace, because I believe these principles transfer to every area of our lives. And so we can get that in our personal life first before we step into the corporate sector or the entrepreneurial sector. We will be all right if we can apply that. Now that you've laid that foundation, what that is, the spiritual and emotional intelligence, take us deeper. You have the floor, Amy, because you're the expert at this. Take us there to that place, to beyond the surface of the spiritual and the emotional intelligence. What do we need as leaders? Again, as I said, whatever context that is, in our families, in our communities, in our business, industry, whatever area you lead in, how can we be better when we apply these principles of the spiritual and emotional intelligence? Take us in that deep dive.
So I'll start with emotional intelligence. And before I start with that, I want to share that at the time that we are doing this recording, one of the top news headlines for the workplace is the Great Resignation. Employees are leaving companies at an all-time higher rate than ever before.
Yeah.
I live in California. I don't know about you, but everywhere I go, I see a now hiring sign up. People have choice, and they're making choices. And what they are making choices for are for themselves. And they are looking for workplaces that are providing leadership with these EQ and SQ qualities. Mm-hmm. If you do not step up and develop these skills for yourself, you're going to have people that are not going to choose to work for you in the long run. That is my opinion. And this is what is going to change the world and make it a better place. I'm getting way too, but I'm very passionate about it. So let's start with EQ, emotional intelligence. I read off the definition, which is oddly very similar to what you learn with SQ, but it's a deeper dive. So I'm going to give you and the listeners 3 things to think about for EQ. 3 parts, if you will. The first part is you need to have emotional self-awareness. And you have to work on that as a daily practice. What am I feeling? What is this feeling that's coming up? I like to use a simple example or story as someone sends you an email in the workplace that just makes you upset and angry. That happens a lot, right? How do I handle this email? This person just really made me mad and they're attacking me, and now I feel defensive. I'm so upset. So you're triggered. Emotional self-awareness. When you have high EQ, you take a step back. Oh, I'm feeling defensive and I'm feeling angry. You have about 6 seconds to change that before your amygdala in your brain takes over and puts you in that fight, flight, or freeze space where you're going to go on the attack because our biology from the cave days thinks the lion's chasing us. and we got to protect ourselves, or we're going to run away, or we're going to freeze. And guess what? You freeze in the workplace, you have a disengaged employee.
Sure.
We don't want that, right? So emotional self-awareness. How can I recognize when I'm triggered? Daily practice. What am I feeling right now? What am I feeling in my body? John just sent me this crazy email. I can't believe he did that. Who is he to talk to me that way? And, I'm going to fire back an email to him and tell him what I really think of him, or, whatever the case may be. I know you would never do that to me, John.
Oh, you're good. You never know.
So the part 2, that's the emotional self-awareness. There's a really funny video on YouTube called The Rage Mall Holiday. It's from a TV show, like a comedy sitcom, and it's these 2 moms shopping during the holidays, and it shows how their amygdala gets triggered and they're just hitting each other with their cars in the parking lot. And one of their bumper stickers says, "Peace, not war." So it's just like a really great example of how you can think that you're this beautiful, peaceful person.
Yeah.
Hey, you get triggered. Sometimes all bets are off. We've all been there. That's part 1.
Thanksgiving shopping. Lots of triggers go off that day.
Exactly. Black Friday.
Black Friday.
I don't participate. I refuse. Once in my, probably when I was 20, I think, and that never happened again.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah, online shopping after that, right? So part 2 of the 3 parts. So that was emotional self-awareness. Recognize when you're triggered. Part 2 is, do you have an emotional management strategy when you're triggered? That could be, I'm using the email example. You uncross your legs. You put your feet on the floor. You put your palms on your knees. You relax your shoulders. You take a drink of water. Have you ever seen a toddler crying and you give them a drink of water and they stop? They can't cry and drink the water at the same time. Just a little example there. And then breathe. I talk about the 3-2-4 breathing method all the time.
Yeah. You
breathe in for 3 seconds. You hold it for 2. You exhale for 4. So before I'm going to reply to John and tell him what I really think, because I'm upset, I'm going to uncross my legs, put my hands on my knees, do my 3-2-4 breathing method, take a drink of water, and get myself back to my neocortex in my brain and not my amygdala. The neocortex is all these possibilities and creativity and that calm feeling you feel when you're like, oh, I feel good. I'm in the zone. Like, I can do this. Hey, now we're going to go to part 3. Hey, maybe let me reframe this. Maybe John's having a bad day. Part 3 of this EQ 3-step process is establishing a connection. And I love the way that you end your show, Lafayette, about building the bridge and not walls. I don't know if you still say that on the show today.
Yes. Faithful. Yeah.
But that is part 3 of EQ, is establishing a connection, building a bridge by validating the other person's emotions. Yeah. You listen for what is important to them. You summarize your understanding of their perspective, even if you don't agree with it. And you have a willingness to see their side. And you also ask open-ended questions while you're doing it. Mm. By the way, this is a huge executive coaching tool. We stay curious. We listen to understand, not give advice. And we're open to outcome, but we're not attached to it. Mm. So those are the 3.
Hold on. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt.
Interrupt me, please.
That was very powerful. You're not attached to the outcome. Can you go further in that? Because we are so result driven in society that will do anything, compromise our integrity, compromise our standards, compromise our moral compass, compromise our leadership tactics, our professionalism, because we're looking for a certain outcome in our lives, whether that be to climb the corporate ladder, get that position. But you said not being so attached to the outcome. Can you go a little deeper in that?
Mm-hmm. Have you ever, it's actually, there's a law that Deepak Chopra talks about. It's called the law of least effort. And it's when you release judgment and you release the need to control outcomes.
Wow.
Because sometimes when you try to control outcomes, you create new problems, trying to force solutions to existing problems.
Wow. That's really good.
Dr. Angelis Arian is an anthropologist that studied different societies all over the world. And she found that these 4 universal communication principles connect any human being, no matter what language you speak, no matter where you live. They were show up and choose to be present, pay attention to what has heart and meaning, tell the truth without blame or judgment, and be open to outcome, but not attached to outcome.
That's good.
Every day, almost every day, I try to be open to outcome and not attached to it. And you have to remind yourself, because you get in this, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to come, I got to do that. My business, what am I going to do next? I'm open to outcome, but I'm not attached to it. And it actually takes the backpack off, that burden, right? I think that's what you're, Lafayette, where you're picking up on. It's that burden we carry.
Yeah, because I could look at my own. It was so powerful because I just had a self-reflective moment. We talked a little bit last week about this pressure that we put on ourselves, that if I don't get this certain outcome, there's another pressure that I put on myself. What did I not do right to not get that outcome? Not realizing there's only a certain amount of things that I'm in control of. And so it's not that you don't want a good outcome, but you're not so attached to it that life is not over. You know, there is a tomorrow, there is another chance, you know, you still can walk in your purpose. So when you said that, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. That was really good.
Yeah, the beauty of detachment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, how do we determine what outcome is acceptable?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I was listening to a sermon today, and they were basically talking about how we compare ourselves with everything. And they're saying, like, you could be on a good vacation, like to you, it's an amazing vacation. As soon as you get home and check Facebook and you see that someone else you know is on a better vacation, you're like, my vacation sucks. Well, before you saw theirs, yours was an amazing vacation.
Right.
It's like you could be so proud of your home. And as soon as you see somebody else's quote unquote better home, right, you're like, wow, my house is terrible. I need a better one. It's sort of the keeping up with the Joneses. Well, same with the results. Like you may have expectations of yourself based on something of an outside influence that had nothing to do with what was realistic for you to actually achieve. It's like when someone starts a business and says we need to hit $1 million in the first year because they've seen it so many times, when the reality is it's not typical, not even close. And so anyways, and when you said something about telling the truth, even when it's say that in the third, it was number 3. Right before.
Tell the truth without blame or judgment.
That's so hard because it's important to me, and often it's hardest to tell the truth. One, if you feel like you're trying to dodge something, but even then, most people can get past that. It's really hard to tell the truth when you could be hurting somebody else by the truth. And you have to really understand that you have to really tell the truth if you really love the person. So sometimes somebody wants you to keep them accountable, but then they kind of don't. And so you want to tell them the truth, especially with our spouses and so forth. Like you need to tell them the truth because you love them. If you really love them, you'd be honest with them and not just kind of sugarcoating everything all the time. But then again, anyways, I don't want to get too off topic, but
no, that's that part 3 of establishing a connection in EQ. I think that's telling the truth without blame or judgment. I said, ask open-ended questions before you start telling the truth without blame or judgment. You have to ask open-ended questions and you have to stay curious and not judge. Just stay curious, no judgment. Okay, I'm curious. What was your, What were you thinking when you did XYZ? I'm curious. Something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Wow.
Sorry. That was so good. Just the first three things that you said. Go ahead, bro.
When you talked about the EQ is typically explored in our 20s. And the SQ is typically explored more in the 30s. And I realize that there could be the enigma sort of thing. I would say I was probably getting into the SQ into my mid to late 20s, only because of the association I had that really pushed me on those topics. So I think you just don't think about it sometimes. So often people talk about, especially right now with millennials and so forth, people in their 20s jumping from job to job, so forth. And then people in their 30s, I hear a lot of people, is when I really start to hear the conversation of people saying, I'm thinking about starting my own business, or I'm thinking about doing some consulting, or I'm thinking about going into ministry. And I think the underlying root is they don't feel like they have any purpose in what they've spent the last 5-6 years doing.
Right.
How can a company, and correct me if I'm wrong on that, but how can a company support that then? Like, I mean, of course you want to support the young man who's 25, starting his career and so forth. But I think it's really hard to hold on to the employee after about 5 years or so, and you've invested all that time, money, energy into them, and all of a sudden they're not seeing the purpose now. And that, as you mentioned, that's when they're starting to explore, like, what am I doing here? So how does a company supposed to support that?
Really good question. And I think it comes back to the company's values and how they're operating and what kind of legacy they want to leave in the world. We're all on LinkedIn. We see all the corporate lingo catchphrases that go on throughout the years. There's two in particular that I noticed recently that I talk a lot about with colleagues and such. One is servant leadership. And the other is, a lot of people put in their title that they're a change agent. And I've been in the corporate space and I've heard these key catchphrases tossed around a lot with people that don't know what they really mean. You need to be a servant leader. Go out and be a servant leader. Hey, he needs higher IQ or higher EQ. His EQ is low. It's like, do you really even know what you're saying? You're just saying what you heard in a meeting, and you just want to keep it moving, right? So I'm just being frank. I've been in those rooms. So back to the servant leadership piece. If you are a corporation that is operating as a true servant leader, where not only do you want to take care of your employees, but you want to take care of your customers, your shareholders, next step with SQ is make sure that you're taking care of the planet and humanity, that you're not operating in a space where you are depleting resources to make a buck, those types of things. And I have a beautiful definition of servant leadership that I literally could not write a better one that I would love to read for you guys on here if I get done with this answer. But the answer is, how do you want your people to be when they move on? Because everybody typically moves on, whether it's 2 years or 5 years or 10 years. Don't you want them to leave a better person than when they started with you? That's servant leadership. That's leaving a ripple effect into the world. That's operating from a space of high values with your organization. That's my answer.
So what you're really saying is they shouldn't be focused on being upset if somebody leaves, right? I think is what you're trying to say. It was what I'm getting from what you said, is focus on giving them your all as from the company and giving them the best environment. And if they find purpose and it happens to be in another direction, be happy that you've helped them grow to find that spot. And don't get so upset that their purpose isn't with you.
100%.
Is that kind of what you're saying?
100%. Because who's gonna take care of us when we're old and retired? We should always be leaving every individual better off than when we found them, when we work with them.
Yeah.
Plus, do you really
I mean,
want that person staying with your company if they're not happy
exactly.
anymore?
Correct.
Not in a mean, malicious sort of way. But I have found though that sometimes finding items that pulls on heartstrings can seem to help people identify that they have a purpose within the organization. So we've started doing outreach in our community and so forth. And boy, do our associates love that. Just little things like things with the schools and so forth. And when we say, hey, Shelly, can you put together something over at the elementary, or you mentioned something about this fingerprint thing. It's a cybersecurity company. Can you look into that? Yes. And the next thing you know, we're in the school. We have police officers and first responders and parents with their kids are all showing up, and they just loved it. I never even showed up. I was out of town. But it really, I think, gave them a sense of purpose outside of, appointments and spreadsheets and so forth.
I mean, I think you're talking about recognizing the disengaged employee as a elevated, thoughtful leader with high EQ and SQ, and diving into how you can help change that. And if it is they need to pursue a life purpose outside of your organization, okay. But if it is you need to provide these connecting activities as a leader, great. That's phenomenal. Mm-hmm. They're going to take that home to their families, to their friends. I mean, as a leader, you are the topic of conversation, right? Quite a bit, and everyone else is home sometimes. So we want to make it a good one.
Hope not, or maybe only in a good way.
Yeah, exactly. So I'd love to move to SQ, or if you guys...
Sure, let's go.
Okay. So with SQ, you've really worked on these EQ steps, this emotional self-awareness, the management strategy, the establishing the connection, the building the bridge, all of that. With SQ, I like the 21 skills assessment because it gives you a blueprint of where you're at today. And you can pick and choose whatever you want to work on. If something doesn't resonate with you, fine, don't work on it. But it's a lifetime journey that you can take a look at a skill 2 years from now and say, oh, I want to work on that. And then deep dive into that. As far as clients in the workplace, and I brought up change agent, and I wanted to share this because there's 4 quadrants in SQ. The first one is, are you aware? We talked about ego in the beginning. Are you aware of your ego versus your higher self? And there's some skills surrounding that. Are you aware when your ego's in the driver's seat versus the calm place coming from wisdom, compassion, and love? You could even describe it as amygdala or neocortex. But a lot of times, even when we're not triggered, ego's running the show in corporate workspaces, right? That's the first quadrant. The second quadrant is universal awareness. Am I aware that my worldview isn't the only worldview? Am I aware that other people have a worldview? One of my favorites is complexity of thought and perspective taking. Do you understand that the way you see the world is not the way that others see the world? That our 5 senses, I almost said 6 because 6 senses, that our senses, our physical senses, aren't the only thing that dictate what is going on around us. So I'll take that skill, complexity of thought and perspective taking, and just give you like a deep dive into that one. That's a little bit fun and just a fun tip. Barry Johnson came up with this concept called polarity management. And the basic, simple idea to share behind it is when you're speaking, this is just a fun tip to try for the week or whatever, replace the word but with and. And that's polarity management. I'm making it so super simple. It's all deep and there's all this stuff, but it's about managing 2 different negative, maybe opposing views in the same space. So instead of try it, you're kind of like, wait a minute, but try it. Instead of saying, I need to do this, but I can't go tonight, or whatever whatever it is, replace the word but with and see what happens for you this week. Because you can have both opposing things in the same space. So it teaches you polarity management, and that's a daily skill build exercise for it. Does that make sense? Is that, I don't know.
We looked puzzled if Elafia is doing like I'm doing. I'm trying to think of all the times I say, yeah, but.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of examples in my mind.
But see, I got to pre-work how I can make this correct. So yeah, and no, we're not doing that.
Yeah, try. Just do me a favor and try it, because I mean, polarity management is a deep dive for the episode, anyway. So that's one. But try it and see what happens, and you'll be shocked at how it connects each other in conversations. The other thing I want to mention is when I do the SQ21 assessment, almost every leader that's in a high executive position that is a client of mine that takes the assessment and does the debrief with me, they inevitably want to bounce to quadrant 4, which is the social and spiritual mastery quadrant. So the first 2 quadrants are, hey, I'm doing a lot of this inner work. The third quadrant is, I'm mastering this. I'm mastering showing up as my higher self. The fourth quadrant is when other people can really see this being exhibited into the world. Because as a leader, you're judged by not who you think you are, but who you really show up as, right? So the skills that they always want to deep dive into in SQ is making wise and compassionate decisions. And what I tend to see with clients so far, the energy could change, is I have clients that need to exercise the staying curious and the approaching situations with non-judgment more. And then back to this whole polarity management piece, right? Then I have clients that are over here, and I have clients over here that are actually in a space where they need to make wise and compassionate decisions for themselves, because they think that being an empathetic and compassionate leader is sacrificing themselves for others. They might not consciously say that, but they are sitting on the phone letting someone vent to them all day to be their ear, their compassionate ear. They are taking on extra work projects as a leader so their team can have time off, burning themselves out, the martyr, right? So what I like to share with individuals that are in that space is this statement. I make them change this statement around, and I give it to them as an affirmation to say. And the affirmation is, every day, my actions toward myself are effortlessly wise and compassionate, even when under great stress. My actions towards myself are effortlessly wise and compassionate, even when under great stress. Radical self-forgiveness. And of course, boundary setting, right? If you're in that one polar space. That's one deep dive, which is skill 19, making wise and compassionate decisions. And I don't know how much time we have, but I have an exercise that I could lead you in that the listeners could participate in.
Okay.
On that one particular skill, if you want to try it.
Let's go.
Okay. So what you do is you close your eyes. You can have both feet on the floor, hands on your knees. If you're driving, don't close your eyes. If you're listening to this on your commute.
Oh, God.
And I want you to think of someone that you really like, that you work with. And I want you to really focus on them. And with your attention on this person, I want you to repeat to yourself, focusing on this person, just like me, this person is seeking some happiness in their life. Just like me, this person is trying to avoid suffering in their life. Just like me, this person has known sadness, loneliness, and despair. Just like me, this person is seeking to fulfill their needs. And just like me, this person is learning about life. Now, I'm going to do the fast version of this. Now, I want you to think of someone that really gets on your nerves, that you can't stand at work, if you have that. Or maybe somebody that really gets under your skin, or even it could be somebody in your personal life that you think is seeking to harm you or just doesn't have your best interest in mind. And I want you to really focus on this person. And with attention on this person, I want you to think, just like me, this person is seeking happiness in their life. Just like me, this person is trying to avoid suffering in their life. Just like me, this person has known sadness, loneliness, and despair. Just like me, this person is seeking to fulfill their needs. And just like me, this person is learning about life. And that is a skill, an exercise for skill 19, making wise and compassionate decisions. As an executive leader, you can get employees that really get under your skin. And this is a great exercise to utilize before you make a decision that affects the people that are under your charge.
That's powerful.
Incredible. Mm-hmm. Wow. Is there anything else in your deep dive that you want to give the audience? And I think that was really good because we're all about application. That was application, especially it's easy. The first one you said, think of somebody that you like. That's great. But think of somebody that's trying to bring you harm, that does not like you, that wants to see you do bad, that doesn't want to see you have a future. That's incredible. We all can apply that. If you were to give Unscripted audience one last deep dive, and it could be short and brief, what would you leave the audience with?
I want to do this because I planned it, and I talked about the change agent in LinkedIn. Everyone says in their title, I'm a change agent. And so hopefully we have enough time. I just want to pose some of these statements to you.
You're good.
And on a scale of never to consistently, 1 to 5, 5 being the highest, kind of just think through, where would you rank? Because this is skill 18 in SQ21, being a wise and effective change agent. And this is really what it is. So think of what you would score yourself on a scale of 1 to 5. I feel the suffering of others involved in a life change. I can create trusting relationships with most people involved in a life change. I can be compassionate, even if I don't think someone's suffering makes sense to me. I help everyone involved identify and commit to solutions that benefit all parties in the group. I am committed to working toward win-win solutions, even if others are ready to jump to a quick solution. I know when to slow everyone down to allow time to be more creative. Here's the kicker. If a change effort I was involved in fails, I ask questions of all the people involved, and I really listen so I can find out if there is something I can do better next time. Those are questions, statements to consider for being a wise and effective change agent, and what that really is in the workplace. And in SQ, it's understanding that we don't go to quick fixes if something's not right. We look for the underlying issue in the system to change that so the whole thing is overhauled. So we're not rushing to quick fixes anymore. And then I'm on a roll today. The final thing I want to share before, if you guys don't have any other questions for me, is my favorite definition of a servant leader.
Sure.
Nobody could have written it better than Dana Zohar. She's a philosopher. She's a physicist. She has a ton of books out on SQ. She just put a book out called Quantum Leadership. And it is all about innovation through chaos and mistakes and understanding these highly elevated leadership skills of SQ. This is the oath of the quantum leader. I believe that global business has the money and the power to make a significant difference in today's troubled world, and that by making that difference, it can help itself as well as others. I envision business raising its sights above the bottom line. I envision businesses becoming a vocation like the higher professions. To make this possible, I believe that business must add a moral dimension, becoming more service and value-oriented and largely eliminating the assumed natural distinction between private enterprise and public service institutions. I envision business taking responsibility for the world in which it operates and from which it creates its wealth. And I envision myself becoming one of those business leaders who are servant leaders, leaders who serve not just stockholders, colleagues, employees, products, and customers, but leaders who also serve the community, the planet, humanity, the future, and life itself.
That is amazing. We are creating an environment here in Unscripted that we want everybody to be a change leader. And listen, those of you that will watch and listen to this, we want you to stay connected to Amy. She has a lot of incredible information. This has been an incredible conversation. One of the ways that you can stay connected to Amy is by following her on her various social media platforms. Amy Lynn Durham and Create Magic at Work as her LinkedIn pages. That's Amy Lynn Durham, her name, and then also Create Magic at Work. As you can see there, John has her book there. He's holding it up, Create Magic at Work. Shameless plug right there. You can also follow her Facebook page, Create Magic at Work. Her Instagram handle is at Create Magic at Work, at Create Magic at Work. Also, she has a YouTube channel, Amy Lynn Durham. And then also you can go to her website, www.createmagicatwork.net. Also, you can purchase, and John can hold that book up one more time, purchase Amy's products there at createmagicatwork.net. Her book is called Create Magic at Work. She also has team building courses, which she has dispelled some of the information here tonight. She has journal prompt card decks for the workplace, SQ21 assessments, and weekly workplace messages there on her LinkedIn channel. So follow Amy Lynn Durham if you want to hear more. Tonight was just a snippet, a tip of the iceberg of what she has to offer. We have learned and gained so much information and knowledge that's going to make us leaders, better leaders, not only in the workplace, but in our family, in our businesses, in our community. And as always, stay connected here to Unscripted Authentic Leadership Podcast as we continue to bring more guests, more great information. And even beyond that, we have something new that you can check out on our website, unscripted-leadership.com. You can sign up for what we have called a mastermind group. Mastermind group is simply peer-to-peer groups of like-minded individuals who meet regularly on the effort of networking, challenging each other, open communication that will help you further in your business ventures, further in your family ventures, and just overall as a leader. You can find more information there on unscripted-leadership.com. Continue to follow us on our various social media platforms on Facebook, Unscripted Authentic Leadership Podcast, our Instagram handle at Unscripted Leadership. You can also find us on our LinkedIn page, Unscripted Authentic Leadership Podcast. Those of you that don't watch the podcast, but you're a listener of the podcast, you can listen to us on any podcast platform from Apple to Spotify to Google Podcasts, Pandora, iHeartRadio, wherever podcasts are provided, you can find us there under Unscripted Authentic Leadership Podcast. As always, we pray that you be the leader that God has called you to be. And we are here to build bridges and not walls. Bridges connect and walls divide. Until next time, God bless you.